Welcome to Am I the A-Hole, where OP marries an older, infertile lady for monetary gains. And now that lady is restricting OP from helping his sister. I have two siblings, one brother, Henry, 28M, and a sister, Emma, 19F. We belong to a dysfunctional household. My father was a drug addict, but my mother, a sober lady, and she did her best for our welfare. Unfortunately, she passed away before she could help us navigate all the difficulties. At that time, my brother was 17, so after just 1 year of her death, he moved out. My sister and I were younger, 10 and 12 respectively, so we had to live with our druggy father. After moving out, my brother continued his studies and started working a part-time job to cover his expenses. For some time, he was in contact with us and used to visit home few and far between, but after completing his graduation, he moved to another state and stopped contacting us gradually. He is a software engineer and is doing very well, living an enviable life. When our brother moved out, we were still living with our father, and it was nothing less than a living hell. Our father was not a bad person, but he was a victim of drugs. So, whenever he was in his senses, he would try to help us, but he never succeeded and always messed up things. After 3 years of our mother's passing, our father also died in a car accident. After his death, we were taken in by our Uncle James. His house was no different from ours, especially for us. Though our uncle had taken us in, no one was there to take care of us. My uncle and his wife were busy with their own children. When I turned 18, I moved out, and after 3 months, my sister ran away from our uncle's home. After moving out, I decided to discontinue my studies and started working as a bar waiter. One day, I met a lady named Janie, 30-year-old girl. She had recently gone through a divorce because she was infertile and had no chances of conceiving in the future. After 2 or 3 meetings, she invited me for dinner at her home. After the dinner, she expressed her desire to marry me and promised me a large portion of the wealth she had inherited from her parents. I was a little confused, but I asked her for some time to make a decision. I knew she could never become a mother, but the hope that this marriage could help me escape the poverty I had been in all my life compelled me to seriously consider her proposal. After thinking about the offer for a few days, I accepted it, and we got married in a private ceremony, attended only by some of our friends. You might call me a gold digger, but I don't see things this way, because I also did a favor to her by marrying her, despite knowing that she could not conceive. After our marriage, my wife transferred 2 of her rental apartments to my name, and she also gave me $200,000 USD. All this was considered to be exclusively mine, and I was also supposed to manage all her rental apartments, for which I was given a handsome amount as salary. Now it has been 1.5 years since our marriage. My sister Emma, after running away from our uncle's home, started living with her boyfriend Owen, 19-year-old male. He was involved in drugs, and because of my sister's company with him, she also started abusing drugs. After living together for around 6 months, my sister and her boyfriend learned that she was pregnant. Her boyfriend was not ready for a child, so he demanded an abortion, but my sister was not going for it. Due to this, they finally broke up. My sister was out of contact with me, but she knew about the whereabouts of our older brother, so she went to our brother and asked for help, but he refused, saying he could not let a druggie move in with him. However, he contacted me and told me that our sister was at his home, requesting to move in, and that he could not help her because it would jeopardize his children's welfare. I talked to my sister and asked her to come to my home, promising that I would let her move in. One of the apartments my wife had given to me was not rented out, so I asked my sister to move into that apartment. I told her that she didn't need to pay rent until she gave birth to her baby and found a stable job. She was a drug addict, but she wanted to get clean and didn't have any support. I promised to support her both financially and emotionally. I also gave her some cash so that she could live comfortably. When my wife learned about it, she confronted me and asked why I let a druggie into our apartment and why I was wasting our money on her. I was surprised to hear this from my wife. I had never seen her in such a mood and had never heard her talking this way. I told her that my sister needed help, and I was doing it. I explained that I had not given the apartment for good. Instead, I had given it to her only until she finds a stable job. My wife said that she knew these druggies very well, and that they are always asking for help, using these excuses to live off others' money. She then asked me to kick my sister out of the apartment. I was upset by this demand from my wife. I told her that the apartment in which my sister was living was not hers or ours, but mine, exclusively mine, and it is up to me whether I rent it out or give it for free to someone. My wife said that if I didn't kick my sister out of that apartment in a week, I would lose my job, and that she might divorce me. Now I am totally confused and don't know what to do. I want to ask whether I am wrong for letting my sister live in my apartment without discussing it with my wife. Another question is, what should I do now? Should I ask my sister to leave the apartment? OP is certainly not an AH for helping his sister, and he does not need his wife's permission to give that apartment to his sister for free because they are now his property. However, the way OP married for wealth is kind of weird, and now he is a slave to his wife. He cannot even make a decision on his own. If I were OP, I would have chosen freedom instead of money plus slavery, and I would earn my own money. So I would give OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale for helping his sister without his wife's permission, but I would give him 1.5 out of 5 for his life choices. As for OP's wife, I would give her 4 out of 5 for treating OP as a commodity and restricting him from helping his sister. Now, let's move to another Am I a-hole, where OP's sister-in-law demands OP to apologize because she didn't congratulate her SIL on her son's birth. OP claims that she didn't congratulate her SIL because she called her infertile and stole the name she had chosen for her future baby boy. I, 32-year-old female, have been married to my husband for 7 years. We have been struggling with infertility for the same period. While we have come to terms with the possibility that we may never have a child together, it is still a difficult reality to accept. Despite our challenges, we hold on to hope that we will one day have a child of our own. We have even chosen a name for our future baby, Mateo, which we have shared with our siblings and my husband's siblings. My sister-in-law has 2 daughters, and a week ago, she gave birth to a baby boy. At that time, I was at the hospital with other family member waiting for the birth. Once he was born, we were called in to meet my nephew, and my sister-in-law told us they had chosen the name Mateo for him. I was taken aback hearing this, as I was not expecting this from my sister-in-law, because she knew very well that her brother and I had been struggling with infertility, and all we had was that name. She appeared delighted with her son, and I couldn't bear to see that boy, so I left without congratulating my sister-in-law. When I got home, I cried a lot, and then called my husband to tell him what his sister had done. He reassured me and told me not to worry about it. The following week, after returning home, my sister-in-law called me and asked why I had left without congratulating her. I told her she knew the reason why I left without offering my congratulations. She feigned ignorance and asked, was it because of the name of my son? She then explained that she had chosen that name for her baby because she believed I wouldn't have a chance to use it in the future, and she didn't want such a beautiful name to go to waste. I expressed my disappointment, telling her she should not have chosen that name as it was very dear to me and my husband. She responded by saying that if we didn't have children, what use would the name be? I decided not to argue with her as it would be pointless, so I ended the call. When my husband returned home, we went to my husband's parents' home and told my mother-in-law that it was not fair on my sister-in-law's part to give the name we had chosen for our baby to her son. Instead of supporting us, my mother-in-law said that it was selfish of me to not congratulate my sister-in-law on her new baby and leaving the hospital this way, so I should apologize to her. I was pissed off by this demand of my mother-in-law, but I didn't want to argue with anyone anymore, so my husband and I left his parents' home. Yesterday, I got a message from my sister-in-law saying I was creating scenes and playing one family member with other, and that I should apologize for all this, otherwise she would cut ties with me. I hung up the call saying, go and cut, I don't care, and I am not going to apologize for the mistake I have not made. So, am I the jerk here? OP is not an AH, but she is too much sensitive and emotional.